Hello, y'all. It's me again. It's been a while since I've done one of these videos. I don't have to go into, the fact that I don't really make videos like this anymore. Let's just go into it. You know how it goes if you've seen my last few videos. This is rare, but I want to make one because I have not stopped thinking about this movie since I've seen it. So the new film directed by Yorgos Lanthimos titled Poor Things has been in my mind for the past 6 or so hours since I saw it. It's one of those rare films that I just can't get out of my head after I watched it, and the last thing I wanted to do was put a Letterboxd review out there saying that this was incredible or this was terrible, because I just needed to really sit with it and not think of if I love it or not, because I did, but try to really think of why I loved it and how much do I love it. And so hopefully by talking about it in this review, I come up with a concrete idea as to why without spoiling it, and we can both figure out what made this movie so special to me. So one of the things I really like about this movie is just the design of everything. Now, obviously, Yorgos has experimented with different or strange lenses in some of his previous movies, such as The Favorite. He does some weird zoom ups or zoom backs in films like The Lobster. And in terms of disturbing, strange, yet funny and sort of satirical content, he has a lot of experience with that with one of his earlier films, Dogtooth. And this new film of his is no exception. As I was watching this new film, I was constantly thinking of how similar this is to something like Dogtooth, because this film is really risky for a director to make and very risque. Now again, not spoiling anything, but this movie had a shit ton of fucking. This was definitely one of the few films that has as much, let's say, sex and nudity used in it, while still managing to not feel exploitative. Now, the reason why I say this is because earlier this year, a show called The Idol came out. And while it tries to tell a story that the director thought was somehow purposeful in showing the excessive amount of sex and nudity in the show for no reason other than to come off as sleazy, that's where the line between purposeful and art versus exploitative needs to be talked about, with that show crossing the line into being exploitative, while something like Poor Things feels more purposeful as it is written both for the story and for the main character. Never at any points did the nudity feel excessive, but rather purposeful to the character, and almost in a weird way, to the arc of the entire character as she slowly matures and develops. And you sort of see this evolution, and in a weird way, it strangely tells this retelling of something like Frankenstein. It's sort of that idea of creating someone and seeing their evolution throughout without the whole idea of being exiled, such as a movie like the Frankenstein movies. But with this one, you sort of get a much clearer or much more thought about and fleshed out character as it is adapted from the book. And I gotta put this into context. Before making this review, I heard an Actors on Actors variety interview with Mark Ruffalo and Robert Downey Jr., and I am currently in the process of listening to an Ari Aster and Yorgos Lanthimos interview as well. And in hearing both of these interviews, I sort of get a better sense as to the creative process that went into this movie and how it was adapted from book to screen. And in that way, it makes the film feel very complete and purposeful, even in some of the scenes where initially it might have not felt that way. To be completely honest, there were some scenes in the movie that sort of took me out of the movie where I was curious as to the intent or why it was being shown at the pace it is. But it's one of those few rare movies where as I'm watching it, and anytime I have a moment of doubt, the scene right after immediately justifies or throws a curveball to make everything that was shown before feel justified or purposeful for the outcome of the film or the conclusion. And rarely do I watch movies that really throw me for a curveball like that, but when I do, I like to review them more in depth and give them that sort of recognition that's needed to further validate the film as something meaningful. And that is absolutely no exception with this film, especially in its purpose in existing and how it was made and why it came to be. And in a climate where film and media is trying to decide on whether or not it wants to show certain content, such as sex and nudity, as it could come off as a bit exploitative or purposeful, depending on how you approach it, it's one of those few movies that sort of really shows and familiarizes the viewer with something, and early on in the movie something is established that can create this tension with the viewer and the sense of uncomfortability beyond something that you thought was even possible. Without going into it, something is established early on, and it sort of stuck in my mind throughout the movie as trying to think of, oh, is this going to be weird? Is this something that's going to continue to be reminded to me throughout the movie? But as you see time go on and as you see the character of Bella progress, you you sort of see this maturity, or like this sort of aging, and like this sort of quick time yet real time progression as the movie goes on. And it's very satisfying to see each and every stage of her character growing, similar to that of child to adulthood. And I feel like in terms of acting and roles that actors take, Emma Stone was given a very risky move by playing such an interesting yet weird character. At points in early on, it felt like it was entirely something different and could almost come off as weirdly offensive to someone if seen on a surface level. But as you watch, you sort of understand why each decision was made and how it was tackled and why it serves a purpose towards the story. And I can't only give Emma Stone props, even though she's definitely the standout in this entire movie, but I also got to give a lot of credit to Mark Ruffalo for playing such a different character than what he's used to. He's no longer the guy from 13 Going on 30. He's no longer the Hulk, but also the scrawny Bruce Banner. He's just this completely different character and immerses himself into sort of the scummy and the greediness of this character that he took, and really shows and goes out of his way to do so. Again, with like the sex and nudity in the movie, a lot of the scenes between him and Emma Stone required this sort of intimacy and choreography in order for it to both feel comical but also purposeful towards the story and everything occurring within the film. And with someone like him, it demands a lot to an actor to be able to go out of their comfort zone and do and say some of the crazy things that this character does, and be able to do so without also achieving some sort of validation for people like that. In a way, you feel bad for him, but also you remember what kind of character he is. And the film doesn't tell you to hate or love the character. They're treating them like people. Just like Bella Baxter is being treated as a person because she's slowly maturing and becoming a person in this sort of weird rebirth, the sort of Frankenstein kind of way. And that's what I really appreciated and enjoyed about the movie, is that every character within the movie, whether it be Willem Dafoe's mad genius weird scientist or Rami Youssef's strange observational yet motivational character in which he's trying to make sense of what's going on and just goes as to what he's being told to do, it's all very purposeful and incredible and so weird seeing occur from beginning to end. But as you're watching, you're like completely sucked into these characters and this world and everything that occurs. And it's just so incredible. And a lot of the times when I finish a movie, I try to not over analyze or think too much about certain things, as some films I just appreciate just for being. But with this film, you sort of have to go into it or think about it or analyze what you saw, because if seen on a surface level, it can really take away from some of the intent of what the film was really trying to go for. And that's just one of the genius things that Yorgos Lanthimos has as a director, is that when you go deeper into the movies and when you think more about a lot of his films, you see more than just what is presented on the surface level. And I find that to be really rewarding in a time period in which mainstream films and mainstream media tends to be very safe. This film leaves you at a very like uncomfortable mindset while still very satisfied from the wonderful and incredible ending without spoiling it. But at the same time, you also have to come back and remember some of those more uncomfortable scenes and sort of incorporate them or think about them into your life and how you've acted in the past, or how you will continue to act in the future, or how you will change. And that progression is wonderfully told in this film. And despite some of the crazy and intense and disturbing stuff that happens in the movie, I find it all to be very purposeful. I find it all to be very inspirational. And I just find it to be very interesting. And it's one of those films that's going to make me think way beyond just initially seeing it. And I can honestly see this being one of my absolute favorites in the future. Potentially my favorite from this director, depending on a rewatch. But as of now, I'm very, very impressed with the work of this film. I can only see it getting better with time. It has gotten better with these few hours in which I finished it, and I'm very happy to say this is one of the best movies I've seen all year. Go challenge yourself and check it out for yourself and see what you think. You might love it, you might hate it, but those are some of the reasons why I found it to be absolutely incredible. And it's really hard to assign this a numerical rating because I can only see it getting better with time. But for now, I feel very confident and certain on this score. And for that reason, I'm going to have to give his new film a 9 out of 10. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed. Hope that made sense. I didn't want to go too in-depth with the analysis while still managing to not spoil the movie. But this one's really special. And I think this is a special director who has created a lot of special and unique experiences for me in the past and continues to with this newest film. So yeah, go check that out for yourself. Thank you all so much for watching. Happy holidays. And with that being said, stay safe, stay awesome, and go watch a movie. preferably this movie. We'll see you on the next one. Peace and happy holidays.